like to call the regular meeting to order. Here a sentence of the minutes of the October 8th, 2025 meeting. So moved. Second. Moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. We Your communication, we got the monthly operating report dated summary for October 2025.
Okay, so if you guys have any questions on this, let me know, or if you have any questions, let me know. So this is pretty much just a snapshot of a couple of the permits we have for the plant, or the parameters for the permits. If we included all of them, it'd probably be like 50 pages and everybody would be bored. So these are kind of like the major ones, or the important parameters. So the plant averaged 2.6 million gallons a day. When it rains more, we'll get more flowing, so that's where you see a max of 6.6. Biochemical oxygen demand is essentially food that comes into the plant. And our microorganisms in the tanks consume it. So we remove 98% of that, and 98.9% of TSS, which is total suspended solids. Effluent ammonia was 0.21. We were 88% removal for nitrogen, with the total pounds of 106, which was 72 pounds under the permit. So essentially, we have a nitrogen permit that basically says how much we can release to the river. Same for phosphorus and some of the other parameters. So we typically average 40 to 50 pounds under it. This month was a little bit lower. Phosphorus is only applicable April 1st through October 31st. So this is the last month we had it. The effluent was 36.42 pounds, which was almost 40 pounds under the limit. And our E. coli was 3.14 for the month of October.
Okay, and as a little bit of a background as far as our commission and how it operates. We have a 5-member commission that are appointed for a 5-year term. And the officers are secretary, Rose Ladero, vice chair, Kevin Ray, and Jim Foot, chair. As far as Kevin, maybe you could go how the appointment works as far as.
Well, the appointments are by the town committees, the Democratic Town Committee and the Republican Town Committee, and their the numbers of those 5 are named by who has control of the town council here in town.
Okay.
When they come up, and as we said, Jim, that there are 5 for this committee, and they come up every year, one of the 5 comes up every year.
Any questions about that? You understand? I think it's okay. All right. The next item on the agenda is the project engineers report. We have 2 items here, current report dated October 2025. And 2 is the listing of properties with sewer permits.
We only had 3 this month. One was a new connection at Bridgehampton Crossing, a repair at Birdseye Road, and then a disconnect for West District. That was it.
Okay. Let's see, let's back up a second.
Yep.
Just as an explanation here, we can give you an overview of what actually transpired at the plant here. So Mark is actually the superintendent of the plant itself, and he operates, make sure that the plant is operating correctly and meets various state standards. So it all starts with, in your home, when you flush the toilet and take a shower, the wastewater goes and marches with it from there.
Yeah, so if you come to the plant on a gravity line, it will come straight here. If you come to the plant through a pump station, I'll discuss them on the report, but essentially anywhere in town that has a hill. Obviously from the house, it can't come here gravity, so it has to be pumped. So we have 17 pump stations around the town. About 220 miles of sewer, so almost from here to Albany and back. And essentially, we're in charge of all that. So if you're down at West Farms Mall, all that is pumped up the hill to the plant here. If you're at the Yukon Health Center, that all has to be pumped here. So in addition to the plant that you see when you drive by or that's behind us, there's the 17 pump stations that we're also in charge of, and then all the miles of lines that come there.
So essentially, again, getting back to our role, is we're overseeing the town's operation of this, which has been described as the most expensive asset, I believe, in the town.
Yeah, I'd say if you've included like pump stations and everything, definitely most expensive.
Okay. So essentially, when we start with that dirty water, it flows through a network of pipes and it ends up here at the plant to get cleaned through various chemical and biological processing. So, and when the water is cleaned, it's discharged into the Farmington River. And I don't know whether it's been documented, but my understanding is that the water that we put in the river is cleaner than the water that's in the river.
Yeah, and when we had the first report and you saw the E. coli is 3.14, it's pretty much non-detect, so there's no E. coli going into the river except for very small quantities, so it's extremely clean.
Mark, I don't know if you could hold up the picture of the calendar to get the quick overview on what the situation.
Yeah, so this is essentially the plant from an aerial view, in a nutshell. You have your two trunk lines coming in from Farmington and Unionville here. This is your headworks building, which takes out any rags or debris or screenings. People always ask us what that is. Basically, we'll get in pieces of 2x4, clothing, bricks, anything you think of has come in here. So this is all separated here. It's pumped one time in this whole plant, the rest is gravity. So we pump it over to this building. This is your grit removal, so that's dirt, coffee grounds, eggshells, inorganics. And you remove your screens here and your grit here because you want to protect all the pumps and equipment that are in all of these buildings. So after the grit is removed, you have your primary settling tanks where your actual solids are removed. From there, you go to your aeration tanks, which is actually microbiology. I don't know if any of you might have heard of water bears. NASA actually put them in space, so we have them in these tanks. They basically treat all the incoming bacteria and BOD that's coming in the plant. So this is a biological process. We do it in 24 hours. So we have to, I kind of explain it where I tell all the students, we have to make an environment essentially right here where the microbiology can do their natural work. But I can change what happens in the plant, but I can't change what comes in. So if we have to adjust the pH or the air rates in the tanks, alkalinity, we can do all that. So we're constantly trying to make the microbiology healthy. From here, it goes to the final clarifiers where the solids are settled. The clear water goes through the UV building here, which is disinfected and literally flows underground here all the way to the river. These are solids handling buildings where when the removed sludge from these tanks comes here, it gets the water, actually gets burned in Hartford. Some plants burn it and make electricity. Some goes to landfills, some is used as fertilizer. So there's various options that you have with it depending on where you live. That's the plan in a nutshell.
Now, we can also explain that this plant has been in existence probably since the early sixties.
And 64.
54.
Yeah.
And, so over the years, the federal government and the state government has mandated treatment for the water inflow. Initially, we had a second, what's the primary, the secondary and tertiary.
Yeah, and I think it was what was it 94 upgrade or 96 they had one. So this is the second, or you could consider it the third. They built it in the 60s, upgraded in the 90s, and upgraded again in 2018. It was finished. So this is kind of the third time that the plant's been upgraded to meet more stringent permits. So you're constantly trying to optimize things because the permits get tighter and tighter over the years.
But some of the requirements, mandate for removal of various, pollutants had to do with, putting water into the Long Island Sound, and so there was a big push a number of years ago to make sure that all of the plants that feed into the Long Island Sound have minimal amount of phosphorus and some of the other chemicals.
Yeah, so we're allocated 178 pounds a day for nitrogen, and that was what we discussed in the first report. We're consistently under the permit, sometimes over 100 pounds under the permit, but essentially Connecticut discharges, I think it's 1.1 billion or 1.2 billion a day. The 7 boroughs in New York City are an upward to 6 to 7 billion. So when they did the study Jim was referring to, I think it was the early 2000s, it's been over 20 years now. There's portions of the sound that were almost anoxic, which means they had no air. So essentially they wanted to clean the water and get clean water going into the sound to basically get those areas back to where they should have been. So we got very stringent permits, even though we only contributed 15%, but it's a good thing because we're making the environment cleaner. So we do have very stringent nitrogen permits. If you go to other states, some don't even have nitrogen permits. So we're kind of ahead of the curve here. And then other parameters, we have heavy metals, a ton of different things, but these are some of the most important ones. So.
Move on to our report. Engineering report.
So these first ones you'll see, any questions, just ask me. These are pump stations. So these are the stations I referred to before where if you live on the bottom side of West Farms, or if you live behind Yukon, you have to pump it to get here. So these are stations that do that. Snowberry Pump Station, October 1st, we had a failure for pump 2. We did have some rags and debris that were removed. The wet well itself is not dirty, but these are original pumps, or the actual flange on the bottom is original. The pumps have been replaced. So we think there's some corrosion in the O-ring that's in there. It might just be loose enough that we're sucking in some debris versus actually having a pumping issue. So we ordered some new flanges to see if that helps. Corporate Park Pump Station, we had a PLC failure here. So the PLC is essentially, it's the brain for the pump station, right? So if you have pumps in a wet well that pump all your water, the PLC basically tells them when to turn on, what level, how to pump. So that failed. Luckily here, we have our NIC systems, which are our instrumentation and control company. All our programs here for all the PLCs are reloaded. So if one fails, we have spare PLCs, there's critical spares. So we literally take the PLC off the shelf, plug it in, and we're back up and running. And then if it is just a power blip or something and the PLC didn't actually die, it just lost the program, we can plug in the laptop and reload the program. So essentially you're never stuck. Hydro Pump Station, we scheduled this for back for the month of November. And Yukon, I met the contractor out there to go over staging and other details for it. We are still waiting on the PLC panel from NIC Systems, and Fuji needs about 3 to 4 weeks for staging anyways, which would put us at Thanksgiving, and we didn't really wanna push it between Thanksgiving and Christmas, because historically, it's a hard time to get stuff done then, so we're gonna push it starting on the 2nd or the 3rd of January. But the VFD panels are done, and I think NIC is a couple weeks away from being done, so we should have all those on site and ready before Christmas. Pump station upgrades and collection systems. In the month of October, we jetted Deborah, Douglas, Elizabeth, Irene, and then enabled Unionville Plaza, where Starbucks is. We also scheduled fog inspections for the month of November. That should have said October, I apologize. In the month of October, we assisted highway in cleaning and vacuuming Wolf Pit and Garden Street. We continue to clear right of ways. The Westwood right of way continues to be worked on. The Basswood right of way by Rails and Trails was inspected and actually already got cleared, so that one is completed. We also worked with highways and the sewer camera in areas of Dorset Lane. And the month of October, we began discussing the Patrick Road force replacement for 2026. We're looking for spring or summer for this. If there's no school buses, it would make our lives a lot easier, so hopefully that's something we can put through. We're just waiting on DPC engineering for the final specs on that. But it's probably gonna be a 15 or an 18-inch line. I think they're leaning towards an 18-inch force main, which gives us more capacity long-term too. Repairs and maintenance at the plant. We helped fix the manhole in Robin Road that was knocked off during a milling phase. We changed oil in the gearbox for final number 1. Polymer injectors and needles were replaced on both Velodyne units. These provide water to the dewatering system. They're literally about this big, and if the paddle doesn't flow or spin, it doesn't sense flow, then it shuts the entire press and dewatering system down. So they're small, but they're important. October 28th, all 3 effluent pumps were bumped as part of the preventive maintenance program. We received our new lawnmower on October 29th. So I don't know if any of you have seen our Cushman. It's a huge wing mower. It's like 110-inch and the sides fold down. So we got a quote for replacement and it was almost $130,000. So we were a little shocked and maybe a little angry. So we were looking at other options. Exmark came to do a demo with the town discount. The lawnmower was $13,000. So I think it was about 3 times as fast as the Cushman. So we figured
Went from 130 down to 13,000.
it's not the same size, but it's instead of 100,
What's the cut? What's the
it's a
cut?
72-inch. So
72.
versus 108, I think it was. So you're losing about 30 inches, but instead of going 6 miles an hour, it goes 15. And to be perfectly honest, we have the existing Scag, which is only I think 5 years old, and with this one, the guys can probably do the whole plant a day. So we'll save the 120 and use it somewhere else. If we had a professional golf course here, probably would have gotten the other one, but for what we're doing, we're good. October 30th, we reinstalled influent pump 1. This was the one we pulled out of the wet well. There was an issue with the cord and the seal, so they replaced it. Everything else looked good. I also spoke with Russ. We're gonna look at a critical spare for the influent pump. The thing here is, if we're doing more, there's 4 influent pumps. If we need more than 3, we're pretty much in a hurricane here. So the odds are we wouldn't use it as much, but I'd like to have a spare if we had 3 and something happened to it. So we're gonna get some ideas on what those are gonna be. I know the flight ones are over 100, but maybe if we had a cheaper alternative that could get us through the week or 2 period we would need it, it'd be good to have on site. October 31st, we shut the UVs off for the season. Winterization and maintenance will start in November, December, and this will prepare them for the 2026 season. We're also gonna be ordering new bulbs in the next couple of weeks. So believe it or not, these bulbs have 12,000 hours on them, which is about 6 to 7 years, which 2018 the plant is put on. So we're gonna replace half of them this year and half in the upcoming years. Pack line of pumps will also be flushed and cleaned for April 1st, 2026. I touched on this before. We were under the nitrogen permit by 72 pounds. And I have two charts here, so every year DEP wants us to do a nitrogen survey. Which is essentially all your costs that go into nitrifying, if it's chemicals, if it's electricity, if it's your hauling for dewatering. And then you have your total costs, because it is a huge cost for us here. But this chart was interesting, because if you look. The total pounds processed is your red line. So we were just under 4,000 in 2023. And we gone to about 3,100 this year, so not quite 25%, but close. But the actual reason is the cake solid, there's just the percent volume has increased. So the more cake you are, you're sending out actual less total solid because it's a thicker product, right? So if you think of you're sending out dirt versus mud. Now, there's a point of kind of no return where you're dewatering and your polymer costs, like if you went up to 25 or 30%, you're gonna be spending so much in polymer to do it, that doesn't make sense. But we're at about, I'd say 22 to 23 is our sweet spot, so we're right where we need to be. And then these were the hauling costs per year. This was a little cheaper then, not because we had less solids, just because the rates were cheaper. They've gone up each year, but you can see since we've kind of dialed the cake in a little bit, this is starting to decrease again. So I expect it to go up again this year, but if we can stay around 22 or 3%, should help with the overall costs. And then we went over these already. Any questions on anything?
I do have actually one question.
Yep.
It's kind of like going back to the pump station upgrades.
Yep.
What is log inspection exactly mean? Back in that?
Fat, oil, and grease. That's a good question. So if you go to a restaurant that has a ton of grease, right? And they just pour it in the drain and they don't have a separator or anything, what happens is, I tell everyone, let's do this when they ask me, it's like, think of if you just ate cheeseburgers your whole life, right? Every single day, your arteries are gonna get clogged, right? That's exactly what happens in the sewer lines. So if you have a pipe that's like this big, it's gonna get this big, it's be coated freeze. So then you have a clog in your system and then the sewer backs up. So we have a truck that we take out that jets at, 2,000 to 3,000 PSI that scours the pipe and cleans it. But when you have your fog program, we have, I think it's almost 300 establishments. If it's Naples Pizza, Panda Express at the mall, wherever. We make sure they have their separators and everything's working correctly, so the grease isn't going directly into the lines. So that's what it is.
To go along with that, Mark, you have some employees that actually do inspections at the various establishments.
Yep.
And they either do some education or.
Yeah, so we try to do a couple every month. I think we get it done every probably 2 to 3 years. We've seen every single one in the town. But we're even in like Barnes and Noble, we go there. So any restaurant here, any place that makes any type of food, we go in and we do an inspection. So, and I always tell the companies or the restaurants, I go, listen, I was like, we're here. I'm not gonna say as a courtesy, but if they follow what they're supposed to do, they're not gonna have any issues. It helps us and we kind of help them. But if they're not doing it, then the Department of Public Health gets involved and you don't wanna have them involved. So for 99% of the establishments here, we don't have an issue.
Since we have a captive audience here, Bill Dunn, if you wouldn't mind explaining the importance of volunteering and running for office.
Certainly. So all the people you see in the room, except Mr. Batorsky, who's a town employee, we're all volunteers. We all live in town. And we serve on this commission at no cost to the town. Similarly, all of the elected offices you might be familiar with, the town council, the Board of Education, planning and zoning board of appeals. They're elected, but they're still volunteers. And the town, if you look on the town's website, there's a boards and commissions booklet, and it lists every board and commission. And there's about 300 people who volunteer to run this town. And between the hired town staff and the volunteers, that's what runs the town. And we're always seeking people, young people, who've moved to town, get involved, volunteer your time. If everybody pitches in a little, it gets the job done. So think about that in the future, even if you don't live in Farmington. Every town in the United States needs volunteers to keep it running. And we always encourage people, young people like yourself, your parents, to get involved and run the town. That's what we do.
May I ask, look at age range, like, is there some age that you?
I'll say no. I think that your schooling might prevent you from serving on a busy commission because you wouldn't have a chance to get your homework done. But no, I think 18 might be the first step. Once you hit 18, you can register to vote. You can run for office and certainly be appointed as a volunteer. Yeah, so.
It's good. I'm definitely consider this, I mean, what I'm learning today, it's done some very. Obviously, very important, but there's so much going on there, as I didn't know.
Nobody does, they drive by and that's about it, so.
Every time you flush your toilet, you think of us.
Yeah.
And actually, when you drive by and you talk about the lawnmower, but there's a lot of pride, a lot of effort to make this look like a first-class operation that they did, so.
Now, what would happen if this plant wasn't here?
You'd either be going to Hartford or you'd be going to another plant, right?
Well,
Or if there wasn't either one of those, it would be a whole different story, so.
I'm not a historian, but, some people claim that the, application of, various.
I know we're going with this one, yeah. I had an engineering professor tell me, which is 100% right, there was two major things that basically
Changed.
Changed. society and health. You wanna guess what they were? One was healthcare and one was water treatment,
Same thing.
right? Cause if you don't have this, it's cholera, diarrhea, everything, right? I mean, if you shut the pumps off in this plant right now, you probably have 5,000 gallons a minute coming up in the water. So it's 24/7. People are always asking, what about Christmas? We all have our own thoughts, right? I mean, we have operators here Christmas Eve and Christmas Day doing rounds, never shuts off. During COVID, we had split shifts, but we were here 24/7. So. It's kind of, nobody knows about it, but it's important.
One other thing that, these younger people might be interested in is the level of technology that we utilize to make the plant run correctly.
Yeah, so we kind of touched on it in there, but it's all automated at this point. You have your PLCs, which is a programmable logic controller, you have your VFDs, which are variable frequency drives. Those are kind of the two main ones for energy efficiency. But all different types of pumps and motors, all the pump stations, SCADA control is essentially trending and programming for it. So if I'm in London next week and I wanted to turn a pump on, I can log on this phone and open any valve in the plant from a different country. So there's a lot of technology with it. On top of the biological end for like our lab analysts or chemistry, there's all different aspects. Like here we have electricians, operators, maintenance, lab analysts, an engineer at town hall. So one person can't run the whole thing. It takes
How many staff?
13 here.
13.
Don't forget the poster out in the hall with the bugs.
That's right. The best posters in the hall. And I touched on it before, but if you guys have heard of water bears, in biology or chem,
Yeah.
like NASA put them in space, like we have them in the tanks. So we have a lot of interesting bugs here.
Bill, if you don't mind, could you just give the young people, kind of an outline of what it took to get either you or your wife or both, elected to the town? How do you went about it?
Well, I went about it through a nomination process, so I'm a Democrat in the town. We nominated people to run elections, there were municipal elections just about a week ago. Correct, early voting was even before that, so during that time of, a month or 2 months before, you prepare to do the campaigning that you gotta do, say some people walking around town with flyers, or knocking on people's doors. So everybody running, so anybody running for any office is probably doing this in this town, so trying to be different people taking on the same day. And that goes on for months, you could actually have election day, and then. And it at that point. But it depends how you get nominated, right? There's a process for my party, just the Republicans,
Yep, it's the same.
it's pretty similar.
And then there's, people can petition, run as a third party candidate and have their name written in. We have one write-in candidate this year. I still haven't heard how many votes he got, but 91, okay, respectable.
And then I actually got on this through a vacancy position, so somebody was on this commission and left, I don't know why. So I was able to get appointed to the MTC to finish the term.
So, yeah, it's like, it just like left suddenly, suddenly,
I don't know.
so like, so, there's some like volunteer, right? But they're all volunteer, are they like the volunteer, just placed on the, does the town do something about it? 'Cause
Yeah, they got to appoint somebody to fill the vacancy.
oh, but what about the person who left, like, anything that happens, I mean, they're helping run this place, which is pretty important, right, like. Their lead, not the town.
Yes and no, the volunteers, we don't actually run the plant hands-on. That's Mr. Batorsky and his people who are actually town employees.
But we need the support of the board though, because when we vote for budget and everything, it has to go through this group in here as well.
So we get a tax bill every July 1st. So but if you're a property owner, you get the property taxes, and then you get a separate bill for sewer. And probably, I think garbage
Yeah,
too. Travis. So that's what we vote on, and what we try to maintain.
And last year, there was no increase in sewer use.
So that
Yeah.
sewer bill is what funds the operations here.
So like your parents, when they pay the sewer bill, that goes towards the plant and pump station and maintaining all the infrastructure, right? So sometimes if we have like Eversource, the electrical that your parents have, it gets expensive, right? So their costs go up a lot in the house, well, ours do too. So to put it in perspective, we might spend $600,000 a year on power. So we might have to raise user rates based on operations costs, right? And then we try to save as much as we can. Doing kind of like the efficiency and optimizing and that, but there's a lot of components that come into it. So,
One thing we didn't mention yet, but, this plan is running very efficiently. And it shows in a comparison to the adjacent towns, what their cost is to operate their sewage treatment plant. I don't know if you want to give a few examples.
yeah, we're one of the lowest in the area. I think we are the lowest in the area, actually. So we did about. A couple of years ago, we had a small increase after we didn't have money even with the upgrade for years. And basically it was COVID, everything went up with COVID, the cost for everything. So we had a small increase, but we did a comparison for surrounding towns, and I think we were the lowest out of 14 or 15. So,
And we actually take some sewage from
Yeah.
Burlington and Avon.
yeah,
They
it's
pay
a
us
regional
to
facility.
treat their sewage.
But the bottom is here are not elected positions. We are appointed to the positions, okay, there are 21 or 22 elected positions in the town. Of about a total of maybe 45 individuals. But we are like appointed to them, so none of us are elected. None of us were on the ballot for this position last Tuesday.
But the people you elected for the town council had to okay on it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Right, yeah, that's
Okay.
70%.
Okay, that's good, so.
They approve our appointment, 7 people that are on that, yeah.
I'm not that familiar with other town commissions, but I can say that I've actually been here serving as a volunteer for 30 years. And I've never seen anything political that took place in the commission. But one of the kind of unique situation where they're appointed by a party, but this is not a political situation.
Yeah, it's water, then, but the only one,
Yeah. Okay, any questions on any of that? I gave you some extra pointers. Alright, any new business, Mark?
No, the only thing I did put in here was I reprinted out the schedule for next year because I had a typo in it, but this is the final one, so that's it.
Okay. Unfinished business? How about any updates on West Farm? Release?
West Farms is nothing new there, but the Patrick Flood one that we went over, that we're shooting for next year, probably summer when school's out. And then Yukon will be the next station upgrade, which will be sometime in January, hopefully right after the holiday. So,
Okay, so did the bids get awarded for that?
yeah, Fucci got the bid. So I did meet with them out there already. We have a really good plan for staging the bypass. And essentially as upgrades go, this one is fairly straightforward. The panels are all pre-built, the station we bypass, put in, the web will be worked on. And then I'd be shocked with this one 3 or 4 weeks. So.
Any other business coming before the authority?
Starting taking ourselves to dinner
Mhm.
next month.
Certainly. It's December already, I forgot
It
about
is.
that actually.
Certainly.
So I'll
Gonna
make the
be
meeting
here
at
at
5:30, right?
5:30.
Yeah.
Sure.
For the no other business, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Move to the second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried.